All right. Well, as many of you know, I am a fourth-generation Unity student. My great-grandmother was in Unity, and from what I've been told, she was a very disciplined Swedish woman, especially when it came to practicing the Unity principles. Therefore, when my grandmother and my grandmother's sister, Auntie Helga, got a hold of these teachings, they too were very disciplined in their practice. So let me tell you a little bit about my aunt, Auntie Helga. I loved her very much, and in my perspective and my relationship with her, she was just wonderful to be around. Always positive, and she always had a smile on her face, and she only had people in her life that brought her great joy and brought her levity in her life. Now, who she spent her time with was an important value for her. She was very picky about the people that she hung around. My Auntie Helga also had this uncanny way of winning things. Just about every sweepstakes, raffle, drawing, she would win. Now, in those days, you would fill out a ticket or a paper form of some sort, and you'd put it in this big bin, and then someone would draw out the winning ticket from the bucket or bin of some kind. Now, this was her trick. This is what she said. She said, always crumple your ticket with the thought of winning, or she said, or even fold down one side and then put it in the bin. So basically, she would infuse her ticket with the energy of winning, and normally she would win. In the early 1980s, she went from Vista, California on a bus trip for senior citizens to Las Vegas. And on the last day that they were there, as the coordinator was trying to, of the trip, the coordinator was trying to get everybody to gather together to get on the bus to leave to go home. And she decided to just put a couple of quarters into the slot machine on her way out. Well, she won the jackpot. Money was just pouring out of the machine. Security guards were showing up to help her not only gather the money, but to make sure nobody else was getting the money. And I don't know what the standards were at that particular time as far as paperwork was concerned. All I know is that she was able to happily walk away with thousands of dollars worth of winnings. Meanwhile, while everyone was on the bus waiting for her, they didn't know that she had just won. But about 15 minutes goes by, and as they were waiting, some robbers got on board and robbed everyone on the bus and took off with all their winnings, all of their possessions, purses, wallets, jewelry, watches. And my Auntie Helga approaches the bus and sees this commotion, and the bus driver yells, "We've just been robbed! We've just been robbed!" So the police arrives, questions everyone about the robbers, and meanwhile, she says nothing. In fact, all the way home, she just kept quiet. Everyone was so into their drama, and they didn't even know that the reason that they were getting on board late was because of her. They thought that she had also been on the bus while they were getting robbed. And all the way home, people are testy, they were angry, they were bitter, and being a good Unity Truth student, my Auntie Helga was very quiet. She went inside to her Buddha self. She went into that calm inside the storm. And all the way home, she never chose to get plugged into the negative group consciousness that was brewing. As far as she was concerned, plugging into a negative group consciousness of any kind was, as she put, distasteful and very unattractive. I love that story. And as you know, stories are more than what they appear. And this story is coated with tools of empowerment, especially for today's day and age. So let's playfully dissect this story and illuminate this story, shall we? The reason I love this story is because it tells about group consciousness and the type of group consciousness you want to get plugged into. Remember, everything is energy. There's not a spot where energy is not. And the job of the universe is to match energy, right? That's just quantum physics in its most basic fact. Therefore, I want to take a passage from the Bible that says, if two of you agree on earth concerning anything that they ask, it will be done for them. Now, when there are 2 or 3 or more people gathered in a group thought, a group think, if you will, then there's a lot of energy behind it, which develops its own gravitational pull, which will suck you right in. Quantum physicists say that it almost looks like a whirlpool of energy, and then you get swept up into that whirlpool, either for better or worse. That means that you get sucked into and become a vibrational match to that experience. And you manifest whatever your dominant vibration is attuned to. So when I look at my Auntie Helga, she was not a vibrational match to being robbed. In fact, she was winning money while the group consciousness on the bus was losing money. They had an unconscious group agreement, and she was not a part of that. If 2 of you agree on earth concerning anything that they ask, it will be done for them. Eastern philosophy advises that if we want to arrive at our dream, we should travel with others that are going in the same direction. And that is why I advise people not to hang around those who love to gossip or complain or criticize or find fault, because it's not an energy you want to get plugged into. Because what you permit, you promote. I want to say that again. What you permit in your sphere of consciousness, you are promoting. If I am around people who are used to complaining and fault finding, for me, it's like nails on a chalkboard. They rarely see what is good, and their focus is on what is not working rather than what is working. This last week, I had a call from a colleague. Let's just call her Minister Martha. And Minister Martha was telling me about having to be around this one person that we'll just call Negative Nellie. You know, sometimes we have to be around people that we don't want to be around, maybe coworkers or a family member or maybe just friends of friends. But sometimes we have to be around people that we don't want to be around, right? So Minister Martha had to be around Negative Nellie. Now, just as a side note here, just to lay a foundation to this story, let's just say if you had an example or a visual of energy, of vibrational frequencies, it would be like looking at a radio dial from 10.5, which is not real good, it's a very low frequency, to 100.5. And let's just say that Negative Nellie was vibrating at maybe like a 30.1. It was on the radio dial. It was pretty low. Minister Martha was vibrating at 100.5. So she was pretty high. When Minister Martha was with Negative Nellie would throw out something to complain about. And Minister Martha would just change the subject into something more positive. Negative Nellie would proceed to criticize and whine about all the terrible things that was going on with our government, and Minister Martha would just simply change the subject to something more positive. Negative Nellie would brutally gossip about an individual that they both knew and then talked about the coronavirus, about wiping out the planet. And Minister Martha would again change the subject. It became a game for Minister Martha, but what happened was eventually Minister Martha got plugged into Negative Nellie's world. And after a while, Minister Martha found herself feeling pretty negative about the state of our world, and she too started complaining and fault-finding. And then she found herself feeling really bad about her own personal world. She got plugged into the world pool of energy. On the radio dial of frequencies, she was starting to resonate pretty low. Later that day, she leaves Negative Nellie. And she's in her car, and her car breaks down in the middle of the freeway, creating more California traffic. People are angry, they're flipping her off, they're yelling at her, and so she was finally able to get her car over to the side of the freeway, and then she realized that she had forgotten her purse with her driver's license, her credit card, her AAA card at Negative Nellie's house. I mean, it was just getting worse. It was almost like her world got a memo to say, oh, this is treat Minister Martha Day badly. Have you ever gotten a memo like it feels like it? You've gotten a memo like that. The 6 people in here are actually nodding their heads. And so when we have had a day like that, it is just frequencies that are matching frequencies. So she leaves her car on the side of the highway, and then the battery to her cell phone runs dry. It is dead. So as she walks to the nearest exit in her high heels, get to the nearest gas station, she has this profound revelation. And this is what her revelation was. You see, she was saying to herself, Negative Nellie brings me down. And then she realized, but the truth is, Negative Nellie didn't bring me down. I lowered my dial, my vibration, to match Negative Nellie's vibration. I love that revelation because no one has the power to bring you down. You lower your own frequency to match theirs. No one has the power to bring you down. That goes for listening to the news, my friends. Sorry, but it does. It goes for gossip. It goes for reading about the next doom and gloom. You are the only one who can lower your dial to match the vibration to theirs. And remember, the job of the universe is to match your energy. Whatever you put out, the universe will match it. And as she was walking to the gas station, she takes time to just, to tune in, to go back home to God, to tune into that inner God self, that Buddha self, that Christ essence, and to raise her own energy. And she says to the universe, you know what I need. You know what I want. And I know that you will provide and take care of me. And I know that I will just right now allow your organizing principle of synchronicity to bring me exactly what I need. So in complete trust, she just rested in God's energy, knowing that all is well. By the time she got to the service station, things started to shift vibrationally for her. And it started to shift in her favor. The attendants at the gas station went and actually towed her car for free. Now remember, she had no ID. They gave her a phone charger to charge her phone so that she could call Uber to get her back to Negative Nellie's house to pick up her purse. And it also turned out that the service station that she chose to go to just happened to be the premier experts on her type of foreign car. So her car now is in good hands. Remember, the universe responds to whatever vibration you are sending energetically by giving you more of it, whether it's positive or negative. Again, I can't stress this enough. You create your own vibration. And no matter what happens, you still get to determine what does and doesn't enter into your reality. The world is filled with group consciousnesses that are complainers, fault finders, gossipers who love to revel in fault finding. Things they try to find things that are wrong. But so what? The world is filled with people who love beauty, who love the splendor and the appreciation and light and everything good that this world has to offer. And you get to choose which group you want to be in. And you can focus on one or the other. And the media right now is doing a great job in enrolling people in mass hysteria. Have you noticed that? Absolutely. I'm getting some amens right here. So this simple teaching is whatever vibration you focus on, the more of it you will get. Recently, I was asked about the Mandela effect. Does anyone here know about the Mandela effect? Nobody in this huge congregation today knows about the Mandela, so I'm going to tell you about it. It turns out the Mandela effect is a phenomenon where large groups of people remember having something happen in history that turns out it never happened. The name of the theory comes from many people feeling certain that they remember Nelson Mandela dying while he was still in prison back in the 1980s. They remember seeing clips of his funeral on TV. There are other things they remember. Billy Graham's funeral in the 1990s, really remember it. They remember the presidents attending this funeral. And it turns out, nope, he was still alive. We Are the Champions by Queen ends differently than what most people recall. Many of those familiar with the song can remember the final lyrics saying, "No time for losers, because we are the champions of the world." Well, guess what? There is no of the world. The song just ends, and it's driving people crazy because they feel 100% sure they've heard otherwise in the past. I'm one of them. If you've seen Silence of the Lambs, you know the most famous line is, "Hello, Clarice." The only problem is that never happened. And when Clarice first meets Hannibal Lecter, he simply says, "Good morning." That's it. How is a film's most well-known line non-existent? Do you know that Jiffy peanut butter doesn't exist? It's called Jif, even though people remember the popular brand of peanut butter being called Jiffy. And this is what I find so fascinating about this Mandela effect, is that it illuminates the awareness that where two or more are in agreement of an idea, it then becomes their reality. That is the power of group consciousness, my friends. This last Friday, my husband, Steve, and I drove to the grocery store in Ojai for lunch. They have a great deli and salad bar there, and it took forever for us to find a parking place, and we thought, what the heck is going on here? So after we finally got our car parked, we could feel, as we're approaching the store, the panic of group consciousness. So we looked at each other and we said, should we get a cart and stock up? $180 later, we walked out with tons of survival food. And we noticed something about ourselves. We bought things that we don't normally buy because we saw that there was only one can left, and all of a sudden we felt compelled to buy it. And then we got freaked out because there was absolutely no toilet paper. We got plugged into scarcity consciousness, and we had a lack attack. Oy vey is what I have to say to that. Now, don't get me wrong. It's always a good idea to have a pantry full of things you require. However, being that we are all good Unity students here, you know that if you don't match their frequency, you can't experience it. You are your own reality. You have to agree to match your energy in order to feel like they are affecting you. And so if you want your own personal life to get better and better, be around people who are resonating on the higher levels on the radio dial. And that will be your reality. There was some research done where a group of people had come together with one single intention: to create peace in a war-torn area of the world by simply joining together in consciousness and meditating for peace. And what happened next was truly fascinating. There was a significant reduction in crime, in violence, in overall deaths in that area. Actually, the effect was so big that the researchers truly, they couldn't believe it. Nearly immediate reductions in war deaths averaged about better than 70%. That's an incredible outcome. And what I found to be interesting is when meditators shifted their consciousness away from war and towards peace, they created an inescapable field of consciousness that somehow mysteriously interacted with the world around them. And that is why being in group consciousness like this on Sundays, like us being virtual here, and being a part of any kind of positive group will shift your radio dial of frequency like no other. You see, we cannot escape this law of cause and effect. This law of cause and effect that gives you and I back in our face, collectively or individually, our consciousness. It is a mirror. What we're going through right now is simply a mirror to bring us together, to go to a higher dial, if you will, on the radio dial, higher frequency. You cannot escape it. Believe me, I have tried. If two or more agree on earth considering and concerning anything, it will be done unto them.